Welcome back, Dig Nation, as we continue our hunt for entrepreneurial gold. I'm Tim Laskis, and this is episode 51 of The Tim Laskis Show. Let me ask you, are you ready to start your own podcast? Podcasting has been incredible for me. I have met so many people. I've got more exposure. I've made more connections in just a few months than I ever did in almost 10 years after publishing a book. It was just, I wish I would have gotten into this earlier. And one of my first issues with starting a podcast was, I am so busy, I don't have enough time. Boy, was I wrong. I figured out all the tips, tricks, shortcuts, everything to get it done in a really tight schedule. And so I put all that together for a free podcast launch cheat sheet for you. So you head over to timlaskis.com, pick up your How to Launch a Podcast cheat sheet right now at timlaskis.com. Now, on to our featured guest, who is Adam Urbanski. Adam is an incredible guest who started out his professional career with $194 in his pocket. And he didn't even speak English that well. However, he was able to build and sell his first 7-figure business in less than 10 years. Adam brings incredible tips and strategies, and I know it's going to be helpful for you. So sit back, get a cold drink, and just enjoy.
The Tim Laskis Show, in search of entrepreneurial gold. Tim digs deep into the minds of his guests. Entertaining, down to earth, and informative. Now, here's your host, Tim Laskis.
Welcome, listeners. Today's guest is Adam Urbanski. Adam, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me here, Tim.
Hey, we were just talking that you are one of the biggest fans of Star Trek. Is that true?
I don't know if I'm the biggest one, but certainly love it. You know, I just love the fact that we get to live in the future today. And when you watch some of those oldest episodes, it's crazy the kind of stuff they thought of that back then was science fiction, and today we kind of like take it for granted.
They were really ahead of their time. You ever watch any of the episodes in like a one-piece like pajama set of like Captain Kirk? Like, you know,
No,
the
I don't do that. I get a kick out of people doing this, but you know, I don't go to those extremes.
Okay, don't they have those? I don't know what do they call those things where Comic-Con or something? Do they have where people go who are
they
big
do?
fans?
And you know, I'm kind of a late bloomer nerd. You know, I didn't discover my inner nerd until kind of just a few years ago. Truly, so I have not made it to any of those things, but I actually think I would enjoy it. You know, like totally let my inner nerd hang loose. You know,
let your inner nerd out, Adam, yeah. For sure. Hey, well, let's move right along. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself professionally, and what are you currently working on?
So I was joking with you earlier that, you know, if you type into Google marketing god, you know, my name will come up.
Marketing god right here, ladies and gentlemen.
And then, you know, I got to wake up and settle for the reality. So I work with entrepreneurs, primarily service professionals like coaches, consultants, trainers, speakers, experts, people that have a solution for someone's problem, but don't know how to actually turn it into a real business. And we help them accelerate that idea into an actual business that makes them money predictably, systematically, and consistently.
So basically, you take someone's basic idea as a seed idea, and you help them kind of walk them through all the steps to actually making their dream come true.
Pretty much, yeah. From any stage, you know, we don't necessarily take people into our coaching programs that haven't started. But those who have started, even in what's so affectionately called the pre-revenue stage, we can still take them on and help them.
Got you. So they at least have to have kind of some experience and have gone down the road a little bit before you're able to work with them.
Well, you know, we can help them even if they don't. So like right now, I'm working with a couple of clients that came to us. They had an idea what they wanted to do, but they just got started, literally like one started in January, one in February, and we put them through one of our courses. And both of them, within less than 90 days, they generated 6 figures for the brand new businesses. So, you know, we can certainly take someone from zero and accelerate them fast, but I prefer folks that actually have a little bit of momentum going on.
Can you tell the listeners a little bit about some of the types of businesses and ideas of people that you've helped?
Yeah. So again, most of our clients that I really like working with are in the service industry. And, so a lot of them are coaches, consultants, trainers. They have an expertise that can solve someone's problem in the area of health, business, money, relationship. The problem that they have is they don't know how to actually turn that into a real tangible business. So, we first help them harness that idea into some sort of tangible offer. Then we help them build a marketing system around that offer. Then we turn that system into that wealth building, client generation, cash earning machine called business.
Now, are you using like webinars or ClickFunnels or anything similar to that?
All of the above. But, it's like part of what makes what I do a little bit unique is that first and foremost, I am a strategist, and then I turn into a tactician. The problem with most people today is that they focus on tactics first without having zero idea what's their strategy, what's the big approach. So we actually take most of our clients through what I call business growth compound acceleration system. It's a 5-step process that allows them to take whatever they're doing right now, and in some cases as much as 10x it in a very short amount of time.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, what if someone who is sitting out there today, they're thinking, there's a lot of people in my space that I'm in, whatever they may be in, they're kind of thinking this to themselves, and they're saying, it's so crowded out there. How can I even become recognized? How can I kind of rise to the top? What do you say to those people?
They're pretty much screwed.
They're screwed. Just give it up. Go do
How is that for else. A solid business advisor, right? Go get a job.
Adam tells it like it is. You're screwed.
Seriously, Tim. No, you know what? That's a great question. In fact, I just had this conversation with someone before I got on the show with you. And I'm going to give you a couple of tactical things. But, the first thing, kind of strategically thinking, the conversation I had essentially boiled down to this. There is everything in business can be copied and ripped off. There's one thing that's going to make you stand out, and it's going to make you truly uniquely you, and that is your personality. Kind of what is it that makes you tick, your quirks. Today I when people come and say, listen, how much of my personality should I put in my business? And I always say tell me about your personality. And I say, imagine like if you had a radio, right? You take your personality and dial it by a factor of 10. It's like really crank up the volume on your personality, because that is what's going to make you stand out. But more tactically, one thing that we tend to do with a lot of our clients is I teach them the strategy of talking the walk. Talking the walk.
Talking the walk. Not walking the walk.
Or preaching what they practice. Which is, when you hear it, it kind of jars your thought, because it's a little bit, it's in reverse what normally people say, walk the talk and practice what you preach. Well, to me, that is backwards, because essentially what it means is that people fake it till they make it, right? That's what most people do. So they start preaching something, and they want to create an advisory business of some sorts, teaching stuff they haven't yet done themselves. And it's really hard because they drown out in the noise. They don't know how to be unique because they don't have enough in-depth knowledge on the subject to really hold their own, right? They start being timid because they compare themselves to people who are ahead of them, who have maybe better websites, bigger following, louder message. And if you talk your walk, essentially what it means is focus on something you've done for yourself already. You've done it well, or you've done it for someone else, maybe as an employee, but you've done it really well. And then start showing others how to do it. That's one of the fastest ways to really stand out. I'll give you an idea. So I had a client, this is now a while back, she came back and said, I want to be a business consultant. I'm like, business consultants are freaking dime a dozen. So what do you don't understand? I work with my family business. I've been in this business for 25 years. We just sold it for a lot of money. I was a part of it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, you're telling me, it's a great story, but how does that make you unique? So you know how to build a business. You know how to grow a business. Like, so what? Everybody can claim it on the internet. What makes you different? And, she sort of resisted me this narrowing down factor. And at some point she says, I spend a lot of money on those internet marketing courses, and especially on social media, like a lot of money. Like this Facebook stuff I know in and out. I'm like, why don't you just really zero in on Facebook? No, I don't want to do that. And eventually she comes and she said, this is now at the point where Facebook pages were really becoming popular. And so, I just in the last month, I got my 1,026 fans to my page. I only worked on like 10 minutes a day. I spent zero money on advertising. I'm like, you did what? I'm like, you realize people spend a fortune and hours a day, and they end up with like 100 fans after a year, right? And you got 1,000 in 30 days with no advertising, whatever. Why don't you just teach that? Says, no, I can't. That's just too basic. I'm like, no, just trust me. Just essentially teach a class, program, webinar, whatever. How I got 1,026 fans in 30 days in 10 minutes a day with zero money on advertising. Tim, it took off like wildfire. In 90 days, she was everywhere, being interviewed, turned this, short 1-hour training into a book, turned it into a half-day workshop, into a 1-day workshop, into a 3-day training, into a year-long coaching program, all because she started teaching on a very narrow idea that she knew in and out because she's actually done it.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's an awesome and inspiring story. And you just gave us some wealth of information there, and, being specific and focus on you being unique and all that great stuff. Now, Adam, tell the listeners a little bit about, what are some tips, regardless of what they're into, that will help them to actually, be an established entrepreneur? Do you have anything that you can recommend that they do, or a book or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing you want to do is work on it for 20 years. That's the easy part, right?
20 years. Who has 20 years to wait for anything?
Oh my gosh, there is this great movie. What is it called? I think it's called The Score, with Robert De Niro, where he's like this restaurateur, I think in Canada, but he's moonlighting as this world-known thief. I don't know if you ever watched that movie.
I can't recall. I don't recall.
But so there's this score that's brought into him by kind of this beginner guy, and this beginner guy says, "Listen, I'm going to give you some resources, but I really want to tell you this story because when I first watched this movie, I was kind of like 20 years into my entrepreneurial journey, and I instantly had a flashback to me being this young guy. But then at the moment I was watching the movie, I was already the De Niro kind of guy, edited for a long time." And this young guy that's sitting at the bar having a drink, and this young guy asks this De Niro, who's like, really well off. He's pulled so many different scores, never got caught. And this young guy says, well, listen, tell me about the time like you really went out on the limb, like really took some crazy risk. Like, tell me about the time like you came close. And then De Niro says, no, I didn't. I can't because I didn't do it. And the guy says, well, when you were young, when you were hungry, like, when you wanted it all now, how did you do it? And then De Niro says, well, listen, let me tell you how I did it. You sit down, you make a list of everything you want, and then take the next 20 years to acquire it. And man, instantly I saw myself in both this young guy and the guy played by De Niro, because, I remember being this young guy that wanted everything tonight. Like, man, screw your stupid advice. I'm not waiting 40 years for anything. I'm not waiting a year for anything. I want it now. I want it overnight. Well, I had to eat a lot of humble pie in the process to figure out that, there is for some things, there is no shortcuts. I think Warren Buffett says you can't make a woman deliver a baby by impregnating 9 women. It's like, not going to happen, right? You still have to wait the 9 months. So, but aside from this, right now on my desk there are 4 books that I was reviewing, and I refer to actually every single one of them a lot. So let me tell you what they are. Number 1 is called Built to Sell by John Warrillow. Very quick book to read, especially if you're selling services. It's going to help you realize that the money is in creating one offer and then cranking up your marketing like there is no tomorrow. So you asked me what we do, and essentially, it's almost embarrassing because 25 years as an entrepreneur, with 18 years in this business, I stripped my business down from everything to one offer, and, we are 10xing our growth. Get focused on one thing, build to sell, whether you want to sell it to someone else or you buy it, meaning the business works for you and produces cash. Whether or not you work in it, that's what you want to do. Second book on my desk right now, The Power of Focus. Man, if this were video and I showed you this book, it's like nearly every other page has a corner band and highlights and checklist, and scribbles and notes, because I'm constantly thinking about how do I zero in on being even more freakishly productive than I already am. All right? Because, we all have the same 24 hours a day. If you think about it, you think about somebody like Michelangelo. They lived the same lifespan. They had the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 30 days a month, 365 days a year. How the hell did this guy pull out so much success? Or, the more current ones, like Steve Jobs or Richard Branson, like how do they have so much success? They have the same time that we do. So the power of focus is huge.
Who wrote that book, Adam?
Power of Focus.
Who wrote it?
Jack Canfield.
Jack Canfield.
Yeah, it's actually Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, and last Hewitt. Hewitt, I think. But yeah, just put The Power of Focus by Jack Canfield. I think he was kind of the leading thought behind this. Great book. Great book. Two more. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. This book, all of the books I'm telling you are not like, they didn't just come out yesterday. I think that the latest one is the Build to Sell, but the previous ones are pretty old books. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks talks about something called upper limit problem. And man, I just had this conversation with a client yesterday who kind of shared, I'm having so much success, I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And man, I messaged her back and I said, listen, I totally relate, because in fact, just like this year is freaking incredible. Like my last week, was multiple six-figure week. And I am like, I'm waking up in cold sweats going like, shit, what if this ends? Am I dreaming? Right? So we create this upper limit problem where we essentially work ourselves into a frenzy, worrying about things that we have no business worrying. And we find ways to screw up our success. We just, today I talk about capacity for success. And most people want to create a success to be a 10,000 volt transformer, but they have a capacity of a 9-volt battery. They can't handle the success that's coming their way. It's going to crush them and crumble them. Like people winning lottery. They're not ready, and 2 years later, they're bankrupt, right? Fourth book, Multipliers. Look, once your business gets to a point where you're cranking, a couple of six figures, $200,000-$300,000 a year, it's really where you're at the place where the business needs to grow beyond you. And your ability to lead, inspire, select, inspire, lead, and elevate other people is going to be exponential factor to your success. If you can't do it, you're pretty much going to be stuck at a certain level. So Multipliers by Liz Wiseman and Greg McKeon. Great freaking book.
Awesome. Thank you very much for those, Adam. And those are great resources that everybody should have. I'll have those listed in the show notes, so be sure to stop there. Now, Adam, when did you realize that you wanted to be the god of entrepreneurs and just jump in there and do your thing? When did this happen? Were you a baby in diapers, or did this happen later?
I really... Man, you don't know how right you are. You're so right. You're so right. I actually, my parents have told me the stories, and my siblings, because I don't remember, but from the very early age, I was the professional pitchman. I was, buying, selling, trading, doing deals with neighbors, telling people, getting fed, breakfast for swapping stories that I made up.
Wow.
And I like some of the earliest memories that I have is probably from the age of 5 or 6. Where I would walk down the street from where I lived, from my parents' home, and again, do deals with farmers. I bring home, I'll go in there and tell people stories, and I'll bring home a goat. And my parents were like, "What the hell am I supposed to do with the goat? What did you get? Did you steal it?" I'm like, "No, they paid me. They didn't want to give me cash. They gave me a goat as a payment. For what? Well, I did something around the farm, or I told them a story, or I made a day somehow. I made them smile. They gave me a goat." And the parents were like, "You're freaking kidding me, right?" No, I'll bring goats, rabbits from farmers around. So. And then at 18, really, what brought me to the United States, I wanted to do kind of import-export on clothing boutique. Well, that never materialized, but that kind of got me into the United States. And, in my first year, I came to the United States in 89. I didn't speak English. I had $194 in my pocket. I really didn't have any connections. And in the first 10 years, in the first decade, I built a multi-million-dollar business in the restaurant industry. I built coffee shops / bagel shops. We had 5 of them in a production plant, and I sold them off. And the reason I sold them, the last one we sold in 2000, is because, I realized that what I'm really hungry for, Tim, is, in fact, what my purpose is today, it's eradicating entrepreneurial failure worldwide. It's really showing people that have an idea for something, how to turn it into a real tangible business. And, I chose a vehicle of marketing training to do that. And that's kind of what drives me every day. I wake up and think, how do I transform another life? How do I inspire another human being to be, to being better than they were previously, than they were a day before, an hour before, a minute before? And how do I equip them with ways to grow as a person and ways to grow as an entrepreneur?
Wow. Well, Adam, it sounds you have an incredible story. It sounds like early on that you had that entrepreneurial spirit. And where did you immigrate from?
Poland.
From Poland. And what were things like when you were growing up? Was it tough? Was it economically? Was it difficult to get by? Did the kids kind of have to pitch in to help the families?
Well, all of the above. And the funny thing is, I never experienced an emotion of lack, really. So I think my parents were pretty good about, somehow, I really can't, it's a great question. I really can't answer it very adequately because we may not have had certain things, but I didn't know that I didn't have them. And, I was really pretty happy growing up. So obviously, very communist country, I've seen all sorts of things, and riots and police, people being beaten up to death by police and all sorts of things. And you kind of have a choice what you do with it. You either turn it into this dramatic experience, a traumatic experience that you kind of get bitter for the rest of your life. And for me, I just realized, it's like there's such a power of human potential and a message of one person making a difference and standing up for something. And in communist Poland, there were only a handful of businesses that were allowed to be run privately. And, there were like bakers, butchers, and shoe repair shops. Don't ask me why. For whatever reason, and maybe ice cream shops, So those seem to be run independently. Everything else was pretty much government organized businesses. So my parents had a bakery. And it was when, an employee didn't show up at night. I remember from during holidays where it's like it was all hands on deck. I had older sister, older brother, and me. And I would be given kind of a stool, a little bench to stand on so I could reach to like the production table. And whatever I could pitch in, I would be helping. Whether it was, just sweeping the floor or as I got a little older, like actually doing stuff with dough and producing bread. And it didn't matter what I knew or didn't know. I was given a job and, you had to kind of step in and figure it out fast.
And you didn't know wasn't an answer. You just jumped in and you did it and to help the family. And what kind of messages were you giving, Adam, about money and finances growing up in Poland?
Interesting. So I think for the most part, even though I knew that my parents were like one of the 2 wealthiest families in the area, we were like the second wealthiest. And I think my parents were always kind of embarrassed about it and try to hide the money. It's just, I don't know why. So my money messaging, I actually realized over time was pretty screwed up. Like, it took me a few, like my first business, I became very successful. Tim, a year later, I was broke. I had, when I came to the United States, I had $194 in my pocket, but I was debt free. All right. I sold my business, 7-figure business. And a year later, I had $20 in cash and $100,000 in loans, in debt. It's like, how did that happen? See, I had really crazy screwed up money messages that, somehow it's embarrassing to show that you have money. I've seen my parents who have put money aside, but they hit them in the couch and then they couldn't remember which couch they hit him in. And it wasn't the couch they sold or they gave away or they burned in the backyard. It's like, where's the freaking cash? Man, just imagine the fights that ensued around this. So they had the ability to bring money, but I don't think they really had good wealth consciousness.
Interesting. Wow. Well, that's a fantastic story, and thank you for sharing. And since you've been an entrepreneur, what's been one of the most stressful moments? Now, you had mentioned, after selling your company, you had a lot of debt. I could imagine that was mentally challenging for you, and that might be what you talk about. But how mentally challenging was it when you're back to nothing again and you had debt, and how did you cope?
Interesting. So, I think that I'm trying to put myself back in that place what I felt like back then. So I'm gonna come back to this a little bit. But one thing that I've learned over the years is that there is no failures. There's only teaching points or lessons. And in fact, one of my favorite mottos today is like, forget the losses, don't lose the lessons. So that's number one. Number two is taking extreme responsibility. So every time, you point the finger at something or someone, you've got at least 3 fingers pointing back at you. So, everything I do, every situation I find myself in, I've gotten really good at doing a couple of things. Number one, asking myself, okay, how did I get here? So I don't repeat the same thing. And number two, I always say, look, no matter how bad I think it is, it's nowhere nearly as bad as it could be. I'm alive. I woke up on the green side of the grass. Sun is shining. I'm breathing. Man, I've got everything I need to turn things around. So it's like this extreme ability to just take things in stride, realize that good times don't last forever, bad times don't last forever, and they're never as bad as you think they are.
That is so true.
Yeah. So that's number two. And then number three, I ask myself, okay, so what's the opportunity in here? What do I, from how I got myself here to what the present is, what resources do I still have? What abilities do I still have? And what's the opportunity that I can take advantage of, that I can use as a springboard? But to answer your original question, again, I was just young and stupid. I made a lot of money and I lived lavishly and didn't bring money in. All right. So before you knew it, the money was running out. I kept going the same rate. So I keep burning, through credit cards. If I realized like, whoa, wait a second, this can't go on. It's like there's not enough cash to pay for all of this. And I think number one is when you're in that place, again, realize it's not the end of the world. It may be embarrassing as hell, but it's not the end of the world.
Right.
So,
but what was it like for you, Adam? I mean, here it is. You came from nothing. You established yourself. You made a considerable amount of money, more money than, you and your family had ever seen before. And then to just have it slip away, to me, that would cause many people to kind of go into a deep depression.
So funny enough, I didn't. Well, you know what? Maybe I did, but not at the same time it happened. Like I sold my business. I was supposed to start another one. It kind of didn't work out. My dad passed away at around the same time. And I think that really threw me for the loop. I didn't know it then. Only from the perspective of like a few years later, I realized I was in extreme grief. And, I sort of had this plan to make up with my dad. We didn't have the best relationship. And he died literally like 3 days before I had a chance to do this. And man, it just like threw me for a loop. But yeah, I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was beating myself up. But, I think that still within that, I had the ability to, go and ask for help. So I asked a good friend, like, hey, what should I do? What can I do? What are my next steps? I'm obviously seeing nothing but darkness. Shine a ray of light into this and tell me, well, what are my steps? And, little by little, I pulled myself out of this. But I'll tell you another dark moment, which just happened, about, 2-3 years ago, where I'm at the peak of my success. I have so many success stories in the industry where, I don't say it to boast, but it's like a lot of people that come to us say, oh my God, you're like this internet, coaching industry godfather. Like every person that I work with, they always point out like the one guy where they all started, and it's always your name comes up. I'm like, well, I've been at it for a long time, right? But I'm at the top of my career, and it's like first world problem. I'm now depressed. I'm like, shit, is that all there is? Like, I don't even feel like getting up in the morning anymore. It's like there's no challenges. I'm bored, I'm frustrated. And before you know it, I start screwing things up again. All right. So I think that's the time, the second time around, like again, just roughly about 2-3 years ago, like really threw me in for a loop. Really, it's like I was like, wow, I didn't even know that I was depressed. And from what I understand, it's actually not that unique for entrepreneurs that reach certain level of success to kind of go through this kind of spin. And so for me, I think you're probably a question you're going to ask, like what happened. I had to remind myself why I do what I do. I had to remind myself that, it's not about me. It's even not about what I do. It's about the people that I impact and what I desire for them out of my work. And man, that gets me out of bed every morning like nothing else.
Yeah, I hear that over and over again, that when people get the focus off of themselves and they focus on giving back to others and always asking, how can I serve others? That tends to be the one motivator that gets everybody going. That the money, the focused on the money and the wealth and the trips and the glamour and the glitz, and that will soon tarnish and get old quickly. But what never gets old is being able to improve the lives of other people around is what keeps people going.
Yeah. So let me just tell you one story. And I think for me, it's like this quintessential story of why I do what I do. And I think for a lot of people, like once their basic needs are satisfied through business, look, when I started my companies, both my initial restaurant business and the coaching business, I was money hungry. I wanted cash. I wanted to feed my family. I wanted to put the roof over their head. And I wanted a nice home. I wanted to live in a great neighborhood. I wanted to drive fancy cars. It's all like, it's like, when I was looking at people making a difference in the industry, I was like, what a bunch of fools. Like, why even bother? And I was motivated very selfishly. But, today I'll tell you just this one story that I think, I don't know if it will ever top for me. The guy's name is Boris Machovitz. And Boris came to one of my live training events. This is now a while back. And, soon, I don't know much about him, right? He purchased the training. He came to a course. He coached for a little bit with us through some program. But, how late, it's like a pretty successful business at this point. How well do you really know someone? And he sends me a thank you card, handwritten thank you card with him and his kids in the water with dolphins. And he says, look, when I came to you, I was about to file for bankruptcy. And, just this summer, I crossed off my, one of my biggest dreams, and that is get kissed by a dolphin. Now, that story, by itself touches me. But then about 8 months later, I run into a friend that's kind of from the same neck of the woods and says, yeah, I heard about you from Boris. I'm like, yeah, I was Boris. And she says, well, not so well. His wife just died. And I'm like, you're kidding? He says, yeah, she came with cancer. And like within 6 months, she was gone. And I thought to myself, I get choked up just talking about it, because I thought to myself, man, this guy gave his kids and his wife the dream of their life, get kissed by the dolphins. And if I weren't there, that probably wouldn't have happened. They probably would have got kicked out of the house, and she would have died somewhere not even having a home. Right? So that's the difference. That's why I do what I do.
Wow. That must be one of the most fulfilling moments, in your journey as an entrepreneur. And that will continue to inspire you, I'm sure, for forever. Adam, we've come to the end of the show, but you have been a fantastic guest. You provided incredible value and lots of tips and books and information that will be listed in the show notes. But before we go, tell the listeners how they can find you online and where they can follow you on social media.
Dang it, I'm trying to think, how do we spike up the ratings for the show? And I'm thinking, is there anything I can mention about drug, sex, and rock and roll and just something? But, just wasn't quite.
Sign up for Adam's email list and he'll send you some drugs. No, I'm just kidding.
No, seriously, go to, just look up Adam Urbanski Marketing. That will come to me. But if you go to themarketingmentors.com, themarketingmentors.com, that will get you to me, or just look me up on Facebook. I love people saying hi on Facebook to me.
themarketingmentors.com. You can find Adam. And Adam, I'm going to find a one-piece Captain Kirk pajama set, and I'm going to send that to you. I want you to take a photo of yourself and put it on Instagram.
Oh my God.
Well, and I guarantee you that that'll get you at least maybe 1,000 likes.
All right. Well, no promises, but man, if you send it to me, I'll probably do it.
Hey, you've been a lot of fun. Thank you for your time, Adam, and I will be sure to stay in touch and continue to follow you on your journey.
And thanks for having me, Tim.
Take care.
Want more entrepreneurial tips? Go to timlaskas.com.